networking, referrals, strategies for success, and real-life stories from professionals who are building a business based on relationship marketing. Welcome to the Caerusnet podcast. Here, you'll learn how to stay connected in the local business community and become that person others get to know, like, and trust, and refer to. And now, your host, Caerusnet founder, Steven Zyskowski.
Reggie Osborn, the Mortgage Cowboy. Can't wait to learn more about that. And Reggie and I were talking before the podcast just a little bit that he is the first Caerusnetter to get kind of an exclusive podcast from the mortgage industry. I have some phenomenal Caerusnetters really on all of my teams from the mortgage industry from the standpoint of just relationship-driven people, always upping their game. Some have been around doing it for, 25, 30 years, like Scott Lee and Todd Barr. Some have been doing it for just a few years. Tara Summers is on one of my teams in Brighton, and Jessica Ping. And I tell you what, I'm just very happy and pleased to have such great people in the network, you included. And the neat thing about you is that, your and my relationship goes back a little bit. When you and I first met, Reggie, you were marketing a chiropractic firm in Brighton, and we're in Caerusnet. I think it was right around 2010, 2011. So you and I have known each other now for over a dozen years, and I've enjoyed knowing you. I think you're just a wonderful human being.
I appreciate it.
But I wanted to ask you, you are now a mortgage cowboy. So could you do me a favor? You're my only mortgage cowboy. Giddy up. Tell me about that.
Yeah. Well, yeehaw. It's funny when I got into the business and the mortgage business, literally a month before the pandemic in 2020. And, we can get into that a little bit later, but specifically around the mortgage cowboy, it's like, how do you differentiate yourself from everybody else? Like, you walk into a room, a networking event, and there's literally everybody looks the same, right? They've got their business suits on, or, they dress a certain way. And I'm not from Texas, I'm not from Wyoming, but I love the country. And, I've always been drawn to that for some reason. And there's probably stuff behind that too, but I've always been drawn to this, as far as like the cowboy and Western type feel. And I, in all honesty, I sat on it for an entire year, had this idea. I was talking with a couple colleagues, and they encouraged me, and I was like, I don't know, I don't have a ranch, I don't ride horses, like, it's going to be weird. What are people going to think about me? What are they going to say? They're going to make fun of me and all this other stuff. And it's like, nobody cares. Like, it's funny. I just dove into it, and people absolutely love it. And I'll go to networking events now and different industry events, and it's like, oh yeah, you're the cowboy, the mortgage cowboy guy. And that's, I've kind of started that. We've got the dad jokes going on social media, and then, just try to brand yourself that way, just to stand out, as opposed to being like everybody else. And, there's no differentiation there.
I've seen before when I used to live in Michigan, I'm not going to name any names, but there was somebody that went around as a real estate agent that was a pirate. And I'm much happier that you're the cowboy and not a pirate, because that's a little harder to have to put the carrot on your shoulder and have the peg leg.
It's all good. Plus, hey, I don't have to do my hair in the morning. I wear a cowboy hat literally every day. Not that I have a lot of hair to do anyways, but it's one of those things that, okay, if I have a black outfit on, I'm wearing a black hat. If I have a brown outfit on, I wear a different colored hat, but it's fun.
And Reggie, you're with USA Mortgage now, right?
Yep.
That's the company that you're with. And, you've been in the industry, like you said, since really the start of pandemic. So you came into the industry when people were initially shocked and not sure what was going to happen. And then it was just like, the interest rates dropped. People like me, all of a sudden they start thinking, geez, do I have to live where I live if I can manage a business online? Friend of mine, John Innes from the State Bank, he did my financing for the house I bought here in Arizona. I
Yeah,
had Caerusnet people taking care of me for my move,
that's awesome.
And when I think about, the mortgage industry, I used to do it myself. I used to be a mortgage broker. I owned a mortgage company for a number of years in Livingston County. And I realized at that point, there was a point that I realized that I had other callings, other things that I wanted to do, and I wasn't going to stick it out through what happened in the financial collapse, which was I couldn't refinance anybody. I couldn't, uh, people weren't getting their homes to appraise for anything.
Yeah.
There was a period of about 6 to 8 months, Reggie, when it was almost impossible to get a loan from a bank, even with great credit, to buy a house because they weren't sure how much it was going to be worth after it closed.
Yeah.
So now you had this exciting experience of helping people and doing all that stuff. And then all of a sudden, Federal Reserve puts the gas pedal down like never before, and it's changed very dramatically in 6 months. How do you manage your mood? How do you manage your mission through this sort of thing?
I mean, that is a great question. And I mean, there's no doubt that the real estate industry in a whole is an incredible industry to be in. However, if you talk to anybody that's been in it for a length of time, they're going to experience what unfortunately what you experience is these roller coasters of the boom or bust, and so much of it is out of your own hands, right? I can't control interest rates, right? I can't control appraisal values. I can't control all these different factors that come into play, different guidelines and regulations that we have to follow because of of what's happened. And they're good. Some of these regulations are good because there was some crazy stuff happening back in the early 2000s. But I think the biggest thing, and this is probably industry wide, right, is that I can only control my actions and my attitude, and that's it, right? I can choose who I call today, who I don't call today. I can choose what type, if I'm smiling when I'm talking to them, or if I'm going to be down. I can choose what time I wake up and what I'm going to feed my mind with, or am I going to sleep in and just run into the day and let the day happen to me instead of being intentional behind it. So I think that's the biggest thing, is just having control over the things that you can control, and just realizing that you are doing everything that you can to move the ball forward and have a pure heart behind that. Ultimately, I think you'll win in the long run. Maybe not in the short run, but you will win in the long run if you follow that.
Yeah, that's super well said. I don't think I quite had that same philosophy in my mid to late 30s when I closed the mortgage company, whereas today I'm extremely mindful of what I feed my mind, extremely mindful of setting intentions. And that makes a very, very big difference in a person's life and your ability to last. You don't burn out as
Yeah.
much when you have some great fundamentals.
And
So
real quick on that too, I think it's who you surround yourself with, right?
yes.
And I think that is probably, as a guy, it's one of the most overlooked things. If I can surround myself with good people, good coworkers that are in the same situation. And that's what I love so much about what Danielle and Vic and Jen and everybody that we put together here at USA. We have an incredible wealth of knowledge of people that have owned their own brokerages, of people that have worked in other areas that have come together, and we can bounce ideas off of each other. We can lift each other up. We can support each other, and then start to move forward. I think, I didn't want to, I just thought about that, but who you surround yourself with and coworkers and all of that, I think is extremely vital.
Yeah, 100% agree. I mean, our environment really shapes a lot of our outlook. How about your networking and referral type experiences? So, you had referral experiences before you then step into the world of being a mortgage lender.
Yep.
How is it that you leverage your referral network in your client relationships? Why is that important to you?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously being a part of Caerusnet has been for me a big plan, whether we're talking about the mortgage industry or marketing. When I was helping with the chiropractic office as well, that was an absolute pivotal part, right? And part of, like I said, surrounding yourself with good people is also on the networking side as well. And if you can be around other professionals that you can refer to and bounce ideas off of, or, receive referrals from that, they're already teed up for you and whatnot, you're going to, you're just, that's a recipe for success, I guess, is what I'm trying to say with that. So it's an easier way to look at where's the business coming from, and you're just developing those relationships, and you're leveraging those, like you had mentioned, leveraging relationships in order to get introductions to businesses, introductions to other referral partners that you might be, trying to get an in with.
Yeah, I'll take just a short amount of time here for just a coaching moment, not necessarily for you, but really for anybody. When I was doing the mortgage business, I would sit down with the client and I'm reviewing their tax returns, looking at their brokerage statements, looking at, their home insurance statements. Everything is right there. And if all I was thinking about was just putting that in my package to submit to the bank so they could get an approval, big deal. But when I go through that and I ask my client, hey, I'm relationship driven, I want to be sure that you're always in the best situation, and I just have a few questions. Would you mind just letting me know about your relationship with your accountant? Is this somebody you love? Do they save you money, or do they not return calls and you're looking for a new one? And I would do the same thing with the financial advising. You're happy with the financial advice you're getting? And what I found was, because I asked those questions, number one, if I got a no answer, yes, Steve, I'm really not happy with my home insurance company. Every year it goes up 20%. And if you've got somebody I could check that out with, I would love it. So I get those ones. And that's great, because now I can, just by asking a question, I'm getting a referral partner involved. If they say, yes, I love my homeowner's insurance company, my agent is awesome, they're responsive, then I'll say, I love hearing that, because I'm looking for more great agents to refer my clients to. Would you mind if I called them and just made an introduction? So either way, I was meeting somebody new that could become a referral partner, or I was helping a referral partner and the client. So, to me, but you have to ask these questions. You got to be willing to, and that comes from breaking through what I call that transaction zone into the relationship zone.
And I think, Steve, that one piece of advice, that one, simple structure of just slowing down just a little bit, that will take that roller coaster that you're talking about and help kind of flatten it out a little bit. Because now what are you doing? You're now expanding your circle, either with a referral, like if they don't like their insurance person or their financial advisor, whatever it may be, then now you're building that trust with your network, right? Of, hey, Reggie's referring me, he's doing this. Or now you're expanding your circle of influence, because now you've got another, possible referral partner that you can connect with to see if you guys have a match. So I love that strategy.
Yeah, it worked out really, really well. I had a tracking sheet that I tracked every part of my loan, including, did I share my client? Did I share my client successfully with other businesses? And if the answer was no, I was trying to find a way to do that. Okay,
well,
so
and there's another great point too. You can't manage what you don't track, right?
Correct.
So if you're not tracking, if you don't have those checklists, and everybody wants an app on their phone or on the computer or whatever it may be, like sometimes you got to go old school and just be like, okay, we got a new file come in. In my instance, it's a mortgage application, right? Okay, go through all this. Do we have the pay stubs, W-2s, tax returns if needed, and all this other stuff? And then, okay, before we submit it to processing, when we're locking the loan after they have an accepted offer, I go through the checklist and I talk to them. Did I do this? Did I do that? Part of that checklist could be, okay, did I share my client, or did I think about other people in my network that can help my client?
Yeah, that's the missing ingredient. And that's something that I hope to try to help more Caerusnet members figure out, is where is that point in your client engagements where 9 times out of 10, you're just going to automatically remember to do something that helps them in a way they're not expecting, uncovers an opportunity. And if we could all master just having that one time, will definitely increase our ability to impact people. So, now that you're on your second tour in Caerusnet, I always like to ask people that have been in the network for a while, New members come into Caerusnet with all types of expectations. And for some people, they come in and it's truly, literally, it's like a runway and they're taking off. And it was like the best decision. Like, why didn't I do this 3 years ago? For some folks, like Jimmy Plasky, financial advisor from Executive Wealth Management on one of my teams, it was 14 months, I think, before he got his first bona fide referral. And then the floodgates opened, and it was because he poured into people all the time. So each
Sure.
person comes in from kind of a unique perspective. If you were sitting down with a new member, let's say for our Ann Arbor 1 o'clock group, as we grow this, what's the number one piece of advice that you would give a new member coming into Caerusnet that's just, eyes wide open?
I mean, I think the biggest thing when you're starting with Caerusnet is just to get to know everyone, right? The relationships that are going to last are going to be built on trust, right? And if you know that it's going to take a little bit of time for everybody to get to know you and to trust you, then it's starting to set the foundation for what I think could be a very long-term successful relationship. If you're coming in and you're thinking, hey, I'm just going to get referrals right away, possibly, right? It depends on what you're doing. Like in Jimmy Plasky's case, financial advisor, right? There's not a lot of people that are just willing to open up their finances to a complete stranger. So you've got to have that trust built in. And I think over time, whether you're grabbing coffee, whether you're, grabbing lunch or at a networking event and you see each other, or you become friends on Facebook and you start to incorporate your lives together, and then you pass a referral over and you stop by their office, or we've got to cultivate the relationship. It's just like a relationship with your spouse or with a significant other or whatever it might be, right? We can't go weeks upon weeks of not talking with each other and then expect that they're going to give you a referral to think that, it's not how it works, unfortunately. This isn't a leads program. This is a referral, a relationship program. And I think if you've got more of a long-term vision of it, I think ultimately, everybody's going to win with that.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice. Another question that I've got for you as well too. Share for us an experience that you've had, let's say on the Ann Arbor 11 o'clock group, a good referral experience that you were kind of called into the picture to be of service to a member, somebody on their staff, or somebody they referred you to. Maybe you can kind of paint the picture for how that went. I always love to hear about these stories.
Yeah. So, I mean, one that comes to mind is Joe Tiberi. He runs a Farm Bureau agency out of Ann Arbor. Great dude. You always get a little nervous when you're doing loans for people that they are, involved with, right? So he refers me, Kennedy, they want to buy a house. Kennedy works for Joe, and I'm like, okay. So like, this is like the pressure is on and you're nervous about it. But if you have that system, then you just go through it and communicate well. And, it gives you an opportunity to show what you're doing. Right. And because, let's face it, a lot of times you get a referral, it's somebody that's not intimately involved with the other person. Right. They give a referral and maybe they'll hear about after the transaction went through or whatever, or they meet up with them a couple months later, or, whatever it may be. But if you're working with someone, you're going to know what's going on, especially in my industry, when you're buying a house. And Steve, this too, is that's a very emotionally driven decision. And so it is always on your mind. It is always, topic of conversation. And you're always wondering, okay, when are we going to be able to close? When's it clear to close? When is the inspection? When's the appraisal coming back? When is this? Are we through underwriting? And all this stuff, right? So, having that, and then just having a clear path of communication. And she was, her and her husband were beyond pleased. Joe was super happy because, his name was on the line too. Because it's like, hey, dude, if you're paying for Caerusnet and you're saying, hey, I trust Reggie, let him take care of you, he had some skin in the game too with that. So that was a great experience. You know, we've got an incredible team on the back end. I'm just the face of it, you know, try not to screw things up. They do an incredible job. So, you know, it was a great team effort though.
Well, I tell you, you know, people, there's that saying that says that people don't always remember the things that you did for them, but they remember how you made them feel.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to rewind at least 10 years. There was a Caerusnet party over at, I think it was the Martini Bar, which is now
Yeah.
Giannopolis. And I still do stuff at that same location. But we were downstairs at their bar having a big party for Caerusnet. And you totally shocked me and floored me by reading this poem that was just really kind of encompassed what being in relationships is all about. And that stuck with me forever. I mean, that little act of kindness that you did and bringing somebody else up, that's a real gift to have that. And I still remember that to this day. And I know I thank you about that quite often. So I don't know if it was going to make that much of an impact or not.
I mean, yeah, I guess you just never know, but I mean, it's true. I mean, your ability to pivot and your ability to transition, right? I mean, and this isn't the spot for it, but obviously 06, 07, 08, those were not easy years for you, right? Yep. And I know you've talked about it a little bit, but that could have been like essentially the end of Steve, right? And what am I going to do? And then you could have gone the next 12 years, 15, 20, 30 years of your life saying, yeah, I had this and then I lost it. And then I was married and then I lost it. And then I had this and then I lost it. And blame this and you could blame that because there's a lot of people that do, right? Or you can look at it and say, you know what? Yeah, that really sucked. And this is how I would correct it in the future. And this is how I'm going to make the changes. But out of this, I'm going to rise above. I'm going to come out of this stronger, right? And I think that's, you know, not to get super personal, but both of us have been divorced before, right? Both of us have kids that have experienced divorce and career changes and not knowing what we're going to do. And it's not easy. And I'm not saying that it's like a flip of a switch and the next day you're going to be good. This is going to take time. It's going to take years of development. And I admire what you've been able to do because literally, you know, outside of the BNI and whatnot, there's really not a lot of examples that you can point to like this. You've created something out of essentially nothing. And it's all just because of, you know, it's been led by your heart. Yes. And your intention behind it. And, you know, your willingness to serve and just to stay, because I'm sure in the beginning, you're like, okay, this is going to be awesome. And you had a little success, but then people don't show up and then they quit and then they don't do this. And then you think, oh, this person would be great. And then they don't. And it's just like, goodness, what's going on? But you've stayed the course, man. And you've always had that tenacity and I really admire that.
Well, thank you very much. You know, it's, I really identify with the Caerusnetters. You know, I am them, they are me. And we are truly like a business family where people care about each other well beyond, hey, when's the last referral you gave me? We know that when those opportunities come up, people are going to go to bat for us. And I just think that's a huge, huge comfort. Reggie Osborn, Mortgage Cowboy. I tell you what a wonderful honor to have you on the show today and great recapping so many things. If you recognize the guy in the cowboy hat going to Caerusnet events, maybe the Referraltopia, Afterglow, and Caerusnet party, or the member breakfast coming up this July, go up to the cowboy and say, yeehaw, let's have a trust builder because he's one of the best guys out there. Thanks so much, Reggie, for being on the show today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.